I used to think I knew what privacy meant. Closing a door. Locking a bathroom. Turning off the lights and assuming that darkness means you're alone. I don't think that anymore. Because now I know you can share a bed with someone for years. And still have no idea how much they're really watching you. My name is Laura, and this is the story of how I found out my husband had a secret room in our house. A room full of me. Not just pictures. Not just memories. But years of my life, documented, recorded, dissected. And I wasn't the first woman he did it to. I was just the first one to survive long enough to tell the story. It started with something stupid. A light. Our hallway light kept turning on at night. Nothing dramatic. Just a warm, yellow light spilling under the bedroom door at random hours, like someone had walked through and forgotten to turn it off. The first night, I thought I had left it on. The second night, I blamed my half-asleep self going to the bathroom. By the fourth night, I was sure I had turned it off. But when I mentioned it to my husband, Daniel, he just smiled. "That old switch is loose," he said. "Probably flicks by itself. Don't worry. I'll fix it." He never fixed it. And I, like a good wife, didn't push. You'd think when you're living with a monster, you'd feel it somehow. Some instinct. Some animal fear. I didn't. Daniel was gentle. Soft-spoken. He made me tea when I had cramps. He remembered my dentist appointments. He kissed my forehead more often than my lips. He was quiet, thoughtful, safe. The kind of man who made you feel guilty for ever doubting him. One night, he texted me around midnight. "Working late. Don't wait up. Love you." I was already in bed, scrolling mindlessly on my phone, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety in my stomach that I couldn't explain. I remember looking at that text for a long time. Working late. Again. I typed, "Okay, see you later," and hit send. I didn't know that at that exact moment, he was watching me type it. Not from the office. From somewhere inside our house. I fell asleep with the TV still on and woke up around 2:13 a.m. You know that kind of waking where you don't know why you're awake, but your body feels like something is wrong? My heart was racing. My mouth was dry. The room felt heavier. The hallway light was on again. I got out of bed, annoyed this time, more than scared. I opened the bedroom door, ready to march down the hallway and flick that stupid switch off. And then my bare foot hit something. Something that gave under my weight with a soft, dull creak. The wooden floorboard lifted slightly. I frowned, stepped back, and the board dropped down again. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity, maybe. Habit. Instinct. I crouched down and hooked my fingers under the edge of the board. It came up easier than it should have, like someone had made it that way on purpose. Beneath the floor, there was darkness. And inside that darkness, a tiny red light, blinking. My brain tried to make sense of it. Was it a smoke detector? Some kind of sensor? A weird wiring thing? But then my eyes adjusted, and I saw it clearly. It was a camera. A small, black camera, padded around the edges so it didn't rattle in the wood. Pointed straight at our bedroom door. My throat closed. The hallway seemed to tilt. Suddenly, every night I had walked down this hallway in an oversized t-shirt, half undressed, unguarded, played back in my mind as if someone else had been there. Someone watching. Someone recording. My hands started shaking. And still, a part of me tried to protect Daniel. There has to be a normal explanation, I thought. This has to be something else. I took my phone out of my pocket to take a picture, proof for myself that I wasn't imagining things. The screen lit up with a notification. A new message. From Daniel. "Are you awake?" My entire body went cold. He couldn't know that I was awake, unless he was watching. I didn't reply. I just stared at the message, my fingers frozen above the glass. Another message came in. Don't worry about the floor. I'll fix it tomorrow. He knew. He knew exactly where I was standing. Exactly what I had just found. And that was the moment I understood something I never wanted to believe. The man I loved was not just living with me. He was monitoring me. Studying me. From angles I didn't know existed. And this little camera was just one piece of something much bigger. If you're still here listening to this, take a breath. Because this is only the beginning. And what I'm about to tell you will make you question how well you know anyone, even the person sleeping next to you. If you want more stories like this, make sure you stick with me all the way to the end. I didn't sleep that night. I turned off the hallway light, put the floorboard back like nothing happened, climbed into bed, and lay there pretending. Pretending I didn't know. Pretending everything was normal. Pretending I wasn't being watched. I could feel the camera underneath the house, like a heartbeat. The next morning, Daniel came home just before sunrise. He smelled like coffee and stale office air. His hair was messy. He looked tired. He kissed my forehead. Did you sleep? He asked. I lied. Yeah, a little. He smiled softly. Good. I hate when you're up all night. Makes me worry about you. I watched his face. Calm. Gentle. No hint of panic. No obvious lie. If he knew I had seen the camera, he was either extremely good at hiding it, or he was used to acting. Maybe both. For a few days, I did nothing. I wanted to tear up the entire floor, rip every wall open, search every inch of the house. But if I did that, he'd know I was on to him. So I waited. I watched instead. I paid attention to his routines. When he showered. How long he stayed in the basement. What pockets he always checked before leaving. That's when I noticed the keys. Daniel had 2 sets, the ones he always left on the kitchen counter, and a single silver key he never let out of his sight. Sometimes, he'd slide it into his wallet. Other times, he'd keep it in the little hidden pocket inside his jacket. But he never forgot it. Not once. Until the day he did. It happened on a rainy Thursday. He was late, rushing to get to a work meeting. He grabbed his usual keys, his bag, his phone. The door slammed. And his jacket slipped off the chair. A small metal clink hit the floor. I felt it before I heard it. I walked over and saw it. A single, slim silver key. No label. A little worn around the edges. I picked it up and it felt heavier than it looked. I checked all the doors in the house I knew, front door, back door, garage. The key didn't fit any of them. Which meant it belonged to something I didn't know existed. The basement was where we kept the laundry, paint cans, old boxes, the usual boring stuff. Daniel always said he hated going down there because of the smell of damp concrete. Funny how he still spent so much time there. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, the key burning in my palm, and for a second I almost turned around. I could have put it back in his jacket. Pretended I never saw it. Gone back to being the wife who didn't know. But once you feel the floor move under your feet, you never trust solid ground again. I went down. The air was cold, heavy. One dull bulb on the ceiling cast long shadows over the boxes and shelves. The washer and dryer sat in the corner like sleeping metal beasts. Nothing unusual. Except, there was a shelf that always bothered me. A big metal one, full of random junk, pushed against the far wall. What bothered me wasn't the shelf itself. It was the faint scrape marks on the floor beneath it. Like it had been moved. Often. I grabbed the edge and pulled. It didn't budge. I pulled harder, digging my heels into the concrete. The metal groaned, scraped, moved an inch, then another. Behind it, there was a narrow strip of wall. And in the middle, a small wooden door. No handle. Just a keyhole. I stared at it, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I think part of me already knew what was behind that door. I slid the key in. It fit perfectly. I turned it. The lock clicked. And when I opened the door, I stepped into a version of my life I didn't recognize. If this story is making you uncomfortable, good. That's exactly how I felt walking into that room for the first time. If you're still listening, stay with me. It gets worse. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Not mold. Not blood. Nothing dramatic like that. It smelled like dust and old paper and something faintly chemical, like the inside of a photo lab. The room was small. No windows. Just one overhead light, much brighter than the rest of the basement, and walls completely covered. At first, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. Then my brain put it together. Photos. Hundreds of photos. Some printed. Some pinned. Some in plastic sleeves. Some taped directly to the wall. Almost all of them of me. Me at the grocery store, comparing prices on tomatoes. Me sitting on a park bench with a book. Me walking out of my old apartment building before I even met Daniel. Me kissing a boyfriend I hadn't seen in 8 years. Me inside my car. Me at my job. Me through windows I thought were too high to be seen from the street. There were pictures from angles no one should have had. Some of them were time-stamped. Dates from long before Daniel and I met at that coffee shop he always loved to talk about. A coffee shop I now realized he had known I went to. Over and over again. He didn't just bump into me. He had been watching me long before he ever said hi. On one wall, there was a huge timeline. Post-it notes. Printouts. Arrows connecting moments in my life. Breakup, March 14th. New job, August. Stopped seeing parents as often. More time alone, opportunity. I read that word again. Opportunity. I felt sick. On a small table, there were notebooks. 6 of them. I opened the first one. Inside, in Daniel's neat handwriting, were logs. Daily logs. Of me. She woke up at 6:47. Looked tired. Drank tea, not coffee. Spent longer than usual getting dressed. Went to work. Wore blue shirt, favorite. Another day. Cried in the car at 19:23. Unknown reason. Stayed parked for 15 minutes before going inside. Needs someone. Getting worse. This is the right time. Page after page after page. Dates, times, moods, actions. It was like watching someone dissect my life clinically, piece by piece. I flipped to a later notebook. The entries continued even after we got married. She seems restless at night. Checks her phone often. Might be feeling trapped. Moved camera to hallway floor to monitor sleep patterns and bathroom visits. Camera. He was documenting my bathroom visits. My sleep. My anxiety. The person I thought was taking care of me was taking notes on me. On the desk, there was also a small device with a screen. I pressed a button. A video started. It was me. In our bedroom. Sleeping. Then getting up. Going to the bathroom. Crying quietly into the sink while the faucet ran. I didn't even remember that night. But he had recorded it. Replayed it. Archived it. And right there on the desk was a label. Emotional breakdown, night number 41. If you're listening to this right now and thinking, why didn't she run? Why didn't she leave immediately? Let me tell you something. When your reality cracks open that fast, you don't run. You freeze. You stand in the middle of a room full of your own life and wonder how much of it was ever real. I don't know how long I stood there. At some point, my breathing went shallow. My fingers felt numb. I grabbed the edge of the desk just to stay upright. And that's when I saw it. A file folder. Not on me. On someone else. A picture paper clipped to the front. A woman I didn't recognize. Under it, written in the same neat handwriting, one word. Subject. I opened the folder. Inside were pictures. Just like mine. Logs. Dates. Notes. But these didn't end with married or moved in together. They ended abruptly. With a final note that made my blood run cold. Event. Terminated. If you're still here, listening until now, make sure you stay until the end. Because the truth about who that woman was. And what terminated really meant. That's what turned my fear into pure horror. And that's what made me realize I might be the only one who ever got out. I heard the basement door open while I was still holding that folder. Every sound suddenly became razor sharp. The creak of the stair. The soft thud of his shoes on each step. The faint jingle of his keys. He was home. And I was in his secret room. I shut the folder, heart crashing against my ribs. I turned off the little video screen, put it down exactly the way I'd found it. For some reason, that mattered to me. Like if I put everything back perfectly, I could somehow undo what I had seen. I backed away from the desk, my mind racing through excuses I'd never get away with. I hadn't closed the door fully behind me, and a strip of light from the basement hallway cut across the floor. Daniel's shadow appeared first. Then his hand. Then his face. He froze when he saw me. His eyes flicked once, quickly, around the room. To the walls. To the desk. To the folder still in my hands. Then his expression settled into something calm. Too calm. "Laura," he said softly, like I was a scared animal he didn't want to spook. "You weren't supposed to come in here." My voice didn't sound like mine when I spoke. "What is this?" He sighed, like I had caught him doing something mildly embarrassing, not horrifying. "It looks worse than it is," he said. "Worse than it is." The words echoed in my head like a joke. "Who is she?" I lifted the folder. My hands were shaking. "Who is this?" He looked at it. There was a tiny twitch in his jaw. "Someone I tried to help," he said. "Help?" I repeated. "Help how? By spying on her? By stalking her? By turning her life into this?" I gestured at the walls, my photos, my timeline. He stepped into the room fully now, blocking the exit. "Laura, you don't understand," he said. "You were broken when I met you." I laughed. I couldn't help it. A harsh, incredulous laugh. "What?" "You were lonely," he continued, as if he were explaining math. "You cried in your car. You isolated yourself. Your family didn't call. Your friends moved on. You were drifting. Someone had to step in. You decided that someone was you?" I asked. "Someone had to," he said again, like that excused everything. I took a step back. "How long?" I asked. "How long were you watching me before we met?" He hesitated. I already knew the answer was going to hurt. "About 3 years," he said. The room tilted. 3 years of my life. Documented. Measured. Observed. I thought about all those small moments I'd assumed were just life. The feeling of being watched in the supermarket. The time I thought I saw the same car behind me twice. The strange comfort I felt the day he randomly offered to share a table with me at that overcrowded cafe. Nothing had been random. Not the day we met. Not the words he chose. Not the way he always seemed to understand me better than I understood myself. He had been studying for the role. Who is she? I asked again, lifting the folder. And don't lie to me. He watched me for a moment. Then he said her name. Her name was Emily. Was, I repeated. Past tense. He nodded. I tried to help her too, he said softly. She was worse than you. Drinking. Pills. Men who didn't care if she got home safe. She had no control and no one looking out for her. And you decided to do that, I said. Yes. And what does this mean? I opened the folder, flipped to the last page, the last log, the last word. What is event? Terminated? For the first time since he walked into the room, his eyes shifted. He didn't want to answer. Daniel. My voice cracked. What happened to her? She didn't listen, he said finally. She kept going back to the same men. The same places. The same self-destructive patterns. There's only so much you can do when someone doesn't want to be saved. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need, he replied. There was a silence that filled up the entire room. What did you do to her? I whispered. He smiled faintly. Saddened. Almost nostalgic. The same thing I did for you, he said. I removed the things that were hurting her. I thought of the pictures. The notes. The progression from public photos to through the window photos to interior shots. How far did you go? I asked. He shrugged a little. As far as I had to. My skin crawled. You killed her, I said. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He just looked at me. And in that look, I understood three terrible things at once. 1. Emily was gone. 2. No one had ever connected it to him. 3. I was on the same wall, in the same notebooks, on the same path. If you're still here, take a second to breathe. Because what comes next is how I got out. And why I think I was never meant to. Once you know you're not safe, your brain does something interesting. It starts to split. One part wants to scream, cry, confront, break everything in the room. The other part goes very, very quiet and starts looking for exits. I felt both. Daniel, I said slowly, forcing my voice to stay calm, do you plan to stop? He frowned, confused. Stop what? This. Me. Watching me. Recording me. Whatever this is. You don't understand, he said again. I've kept you safe. You were spiraling before I stepped in. You're better now. Better. I thought of all the times he'd told me what to wear because it suited me more. All the times he discouraged me from going out alone at night. All the times he insisted on driving me instead of letting me take an Uber. It hadn't been care. It had been control. He hadn't saved me from the world. He'd just made sure he was the one holding the leash. You could have just talked to me, I said. Asked if I was okay. Let me choose you instead of writing me like a character in your notebook. He shook his head. People don't know what's good for them, he said quietly. They only know comfort. Habit. Pain they're used to. You would never have chosen me if I had just walked up to you and said who I was. No, I agreed, my voice suddenly steady. I wouldn't have. We stared at each other for a long moment. Are you afraid of me, Laura? He asked. Yes, I said. He seemed genuinely hurt by that. That's not fair, he replied. I've never laid a hand on you. I've never yelled at you. I've never hurt you. I glanced around the room. The photos. The logs. The hidden cameras. The folder marked event. Terminated. Not in ways anyone else would see, I said. I knew I wasn't going to win a fight down there. He was blocking the door. He was bigger. He was stronger. He knew this space better than I did. So I did something I'm not proud of. I pretended. I let my shoulders slump. I let my voice go soft. Okay, I said. Okay. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I just saw too much at once. Can we go upstairs? Please? I feel dizzy. His expression softened just a fraction. The caretaker again. Of course, he said. I never wanted you to find this like this. It was supposed to stay separate. For you. For us. He stepped aside. I walked past him slowly, feeling his eyes on my back. Every nerve in my body was screaming at me to run, but I forced myself to take calm, even steps. Up the basement stairs. Through the hallway. Into the kitchen. If I ran too early, he'd react. If I didn't run at all, I'd end up like Emily. In a file. With an ending that said event terminated. I don't remember deciding. I just remember the sound my keys made when I grabbed them, the rush of air when I opened the front door, and the feeling of my bare feet hitting the porch as I finally let myself sprint. I heard his voice behind me, sharp, panicked. Laura. I didn't look back. I ran to the neighbor's house, slamming my fists against their door, screaming until my throat burned. They opened. Called the police. Pulled me inside. The whole time, my body was shaking so hard I couldn't stand. I kept saying the same words over and over again. There's a room. He has a room. He's been watching me. He killed someone. He killed someone. The police came. They went into my house. And you know what they found? A normal basement. Boxes. Tools. Washer and dryer. No hidden room. No wall of photos. No notebooks. No cameras. Nothing. He'd had just enough time. Or enough practice. Whichever is worse. They talked to him, of course. He told them I'd been struggling lately. That I'd had episodes before. That he'd come home to find me in a panic over nothing. He never raised his voice. Never pointed a finger. Never said a bad word about me. He sounded like a concerned husband. Concerned husbands don't get arrested. Especially when there's no physical evidence. So they suggested I take some time away. Maybe see someone. Maybe rest. And I did. I packed a bag and left that night. I stayed with a friend. Changed my number. Blocked his. Filed for divorce with a lawyer who believed me more than the police did. I moved to a new city. I sleep with the lights on most nights. And to this day, I don't know how many copies of my life he still has. On a hard drive. On a backup disk. In some other room I never found. A few months after I left, I got a message. From a woman on social media. She wrote. Hi. I'm so sorry to bother you. I think we might have something in common. Did you know a man named Daniel? She included a photo. Not of him. Of a woman. The same woman whose picture had been on the folder in that room. Emily. She was her sister. Emily had gone missing years ago. Last seen leaving a bar. No leads. No suspects. Just gone. The sister had gone through old messages, old social media posts, old photos, and she'd found a picture of Emily in the background of a cafe. Sitting alone. Reading. At a table behind. Daniel. Smiling with a coffee in his hand. No one had ever noticed him there before. But once she did, she started finding him in more places. Street corners. Shadows. Reflections. Always close. Always watching. She sent me everything. And in that moment, I understood. I was never his first project. I was just the first one he didn't fully finish. So why am I telling this story? Because monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look kind, helpful, patient. Sometimes they look like the person who brings you tea when you can't sleep, who remembers your birthday, who sits quietly next to you while you cry. And sometimes, they're also the person behind the camera you don't know is there. Watching, recording, collecting you like data. If you're still here listening to this, thank you. Stories like this are not easy to tell. And they're not easy to hear. If you want more real stories that pull back the curtain on what people are capable of, don't forget to support this channel. Take a second to like this video, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs a reminder. Just because someone seems safe doesn't mean they are. And if your gut is telling you something is wrong, please listen to it sooner than I did.